Sylvain Rochon, the Peaceful Revolutionary. Welcome to another one of my videos. You'll notice that I have a strange voice today, and I may cough because I'm still under the influence of the famous international cold that's going around. And that's why I didn't post anything last week, even though I wanted to. I wanted to do this last week, but I would not have been able to talk much. So it's coming this week, right now, coming at you. And the topic that I wanted to do, because it was more topical at the time, was about taming the American warrior. And what I mean by that is, there's been other horrific shootings in schools in the States. And I've been doing all this research, and I've been for the longest time about what's going on in the United States. As you know, I'm Canadian. I've always lived in Canada. I have lots of good friends in the States. I like the United States. I like the people. I don't like what the government's doing for the most part, but I mean, that's a political point of view. But as individuals, I think North America is really cool, and we are great individuals. And I find it terrible what happens in the United States in general, being in a culture of fear through the media, through the government, being lied to, and all this stuff going on. And in particular, all the violence that's going on there that is not happening in Canada. And there's a lot of people that look into the United States from outside, like Canada, from Europe, that are kind of wondering, why is that? How come? We understand the political manipulation and the fear. That's very clear for people outside, because we're not inside the media circus and the propaganda that's going on. But we wonder, like, no one in the government that are in the propaganda wants people to be violent with each other. So how come there's so much gun violence, especially in schools, and these things going on? And it's a developed country. I mean, it's a highly advanced, developed country. People are smart. They're well educated. And what's going on, right? Probably, is it because of the military? I know the military is everywhere. It's very strong. It's very pro-military as far as a country. Why is this going on? And honestly, I mean, it's been a lot of time done, a lot of reading from the outside. Like I said, I had a lot of friends inside that tell me about things, and I visited the States many times. And ultimately, it's about the American warrior. America, the United States, is a warrior people. You guys are warrior people. For those of you who are Americans and listening, not everybody, it's not individuals like you want to go out with a hatchet and knock somebody's head off. This is just where you come from as civilization, as a country. You were born out of blood from the separation from England. Very violent time, and that's where your Constitution was born, which is really, really close to your hearts. And there's this Second Amendment that ensures that there's going to be a well-armed militia. Because at the time when the Constitution was written, it was really important because there was a low density of population. The English were routed by the skin of your teeth. And the American spies knew, and the government knew, everybody knew that the English had plans to come back and try to reinvade with a larger force later on. So it was really important to write down in the Constitution the right to bear arms, right? And having a trained militia that could defend itself. That was at the time of the Constitution, a long, long time ago. The English are not coming to invade America, guys. Not anymore. But it did, because of this attachment, this patriotism among the states, and the right to bear arms, and the necessity to protect yourself, it got ingrained into the U.S. society, into a warrior culture. Like, you need a weapon, you need a means to defend yourself and your family. This kind of mentality persisted into the modern world, and it's still there today. And if you look statistically, In the U.S., it's the country that has the most guns per capita in the world, or very, very high. I was looking at different statistics, and they don't really contradict each other, but I mean, you guys are up there. It's more than one gun per person, according to 2014 statistics I found. Sometimes they say a little less. There's very, very few countries that come close. And that's not, according to all the data I've read about, it's not really the issue about how come the U.S. is violent. I mean, there are countries, especially South American countries, and I'm going to be popping some stats here and there. There's South American countries have a lot more guns, a lot fewer guns, sorry, per capita, but the homicide rate is much, much higher. Much, much higher in South America. Honduras, for example, El Salvador, Jamaica, Venezuela. And I know that there's very, very few statistics about African countries about, homicide rates by firearms, especially, for example, and things like that. So a lot of them would be there. There's not that many people that have guns necessarily, but lots of homicide rates in some of the underdeveloped countries, or the so-called underdeveloped countries, or less developed countries. But among the developed countries, what we call industrialized countries, like most of Western and Eastern Europe, North America, Japan, Korea, those countries, South Africa, Russia, blah blah. Homicide rates in general, among all these developed countries that we know, USA is number 5 as far as homicide rates, following Brazil, Mexico, Russia, and Chile. Chile and the US are about the same. So there is indeed a lot of homicides happening in the U.S. In fact, data from last year shows that a little bit less than 11,000 homicides during the year. Let me get that data here. Yeah, a little bit less than 11,000 homicides in 2014, right? And 3.4 homicides by guns. These are gun homicides in particular, per 100,000 people. So that's, that's very low. I mean, it's not a lot of gun homicides. If you look at the whole of the population, it's not a huge amount. There's a lot of homicides, but gun homicides not that much. Although there's a lot of guns. So you take all that in. It's like there's a lot of guns in the States. Among developed countries, the homicide rate in general is pretty damn high. With toppers being Chile, Russia, about more than twice more homicides, homicide rate, mind you. Mexico being twice as much as Russia, and Brazil just about as much. So the countries that are higher than the U.S. are countries that are having some difficulties, or that are having where the economy is not as good, and the development is less, right? But they are still considered developed countries. So if you go into less developed countries, the homicide rates really goes really high. Now, what's really good, I guess, or an improvement, is that in the last 10 years, there's been a significant reduction, about 20% of the homicide rate, and the number of homicide has also decreased, even though the population has increased in the States for gun homicides. So that's the good news. Now, why that is, I don't know. Like, why is there a reduction? Why is it? But some people are saying, well, maybe it's gun registration, gun laws. There could be a variety of reasons for it. I think that people are getting more and more aware of gun violence, especially because of the killings in the schools and things like that. But ultimately, America is indeed, even though it's developed, it is a warrior country where people tend to defend themselves with their guns, and that's why there's a lot of there's a lot of people that die with guns, and actually the higher percentage of people that die, and I'm not talking about homicides in this case, but people that die because of the action of a gun, the great majority is they die because of self-defense. Yeah, another person is apparently defending itself. There's all this information floating around that seems to indicate that in the United States, it's just people are gung-ho. I mean, they want to defend themselves. They use guns. They use different means. The homicide rate is fairly high, so people tend to resolve issues using violence, even though they are highly educated individuals compared to a lot of the less developed countries. It's just it seems to me like regulation is not really a big problem solver on this, guys. Actually, I was reading some more data just this morning and this afternoon, and it seems like in many countries, gun regulation has been instrumental in reducing homicide rates with guns in particular, to a certain degree, but it doesn't really solve the fundamental issue. And the fundamental issue is people have it in their brain that they need to defend themselves using whatever means necessary. And typically guns are very available because there are more guns in the States than there are people. So they'll use their guns for self-defense, for example. So guns are just very available, and it's not only the criminals. I mean, South America proves it. There's a very, very, very low instance rate of guns and firearms. Very few people have firearms, but the homicide rates with firearms is super, super, super high. So, I mean, it means there's a minority of people that is doing all the killing. I mean, gun regulation probably wouldn't really solve that, because those are probably criminals and people that go around the law anyway, right? So in the States, gun regulation, like if I follow people that are really pro Second Amendment, it just hinders their right. It doesn't really do anything practical so much. So it's not clear. It's a social. It seems to be a social issue. Statistics really doesn't show anything super conclusive as far as the effect of regulation. I think that's just a political move to put people at ease. That we're doing more regulation. We're doing something, because really politicians and the people in power that are trying to reduce, and everybody wants a less homicide rate in the States and less homicides by guns and all that stuff. But there's no just clear solution. You can just do it and it's going to reduce it. It's a social problem. It's the way the fabric of the American structure seems to be built on. Just like you see it in the movies, you see it in the television shows. Problem solving by Americans is usually done by using violence. Every superhero movie, every action movie, there's a bad guy that does really bad things with guns or whatever, and the hero will resolve the issue usually by killing the bad guy. If you go to other countries, even north in Canada, you go to northern Europe, go to Korea or Japan, that are other developed countries, right? And you look at their movies, their action movies, people don't die. Right? Don't confuse with Japanese movies that are produced for Americans, because they're trying to target the American population to make sure they like it. So that's a little bit of a measure of the culture. If people enjoy it, thinks it's cool, that they really get excited when the bad guy dies with a bullet to the head from the protagonist, that means that people think that's the way to resolve issues. That's the way you get things done. So when you're in your daily life with that kind of mentality, and you're confronted with a special situation that is, maybe very scary, and you have so many guns available, well, your reaction would be to just shoot in self-defense, so to speak, because that's the way you confront problems, that you resolve problems that you don't see a way around. It is unnatural to kill someone, but put your back to the wall and you start doing things that you wouldn't do normally. And if you're in a culture where guns are available and that's how you solve problems and it's everywhere, well, these things will happen. So you'll have a lot of deaths by guns, by so-called self-defense, that in another country would have been resolved otherwise, probably by not killing the other person, through other means. And the homicide rate probably will go down, because then I'm sure a lot of them, and I can't find any data on that, but a lot of the homicides probably are people that in their home or in their situation, they think they have an impasse. They want to solve the problem, and the first instinct they have, where they're back to the wall without an immediate threat in front of them, is, well, if I kill this guy or this person, then I'm solving my problem. And you see all these cases all over the place in the neighborhoods, in Chicago, in the Bronx. Well, maybe not in the Bronx so much anymore. I guess it's not such a bad neighborhood I hear anymore. But in Chicago and New York City and a lot of these places in LA where there's a lot of shootings, this is just people, and you hear it all the time. Like there's a husband kills his wife because she's cheating on him, or she leaves him. Somebody that's got really ostracized at school and a little bit mentally ill, honestly, probably like a kid, picks up a semi-automatic, goes back to school and starts shooting. This seems like just a permissive thing where, like, if you pick up a gun and you start shooting mentality, you're just going to resolve problems. And it's easy to become mentally unbalanced if you're unhappy, if you have your back to the wall, if you don't have any money, you're going to lose your house, you're going to becoming really down, for example. And if you have that culture around you where solving problems is shooting, then you're going to start doing it, and then you have like the homicide rate that really shoots up, right? So what is the solution to this? Just as always, it's in the title of my videos. Peaceful revolutionary. Peace and love solves everything. It's not immediate, but if you know that you're in a culture where this is happening, this is how you resolve issues, but there are other ways to solve issues, then you take the other choice. Instead of using violence and perhaps committing a homicide when you're stuck, or defending yourself and killing the person that is coming at you or is angry at you or something like that, you find another path. You find a different way to deal with the situation. If more and more people do that, then the homicide rate is going to reduce, and then the gun death rate is going to go down, and you're helping society to go from a warrior, defend yourself at all costs with whatever weapon you got around you, to a more peaceful nature, a more natural person that's not fearful. Now, the government, like I mentioned, the U.S. is in a culture of fear. Now, if you're held in a fearful state, yeah, you're going to react a lot more like knee-jerk, according to these natural impulses of defending yourself and all that stuff. So if the government would lay off this propaganda of and trying to control people and stopping doing all that stuff, that's going to help for sure, because then people are going to start thinking a lot clearly and figure, okay, well, let's focus here and deal with our daily lives and make sure that everybody's happy, instead of solving problems using any weapons around them. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but still, the situation in the States seems to be getting better over the last 10 years, which is a really good sign. But there's a really long road to go, and I guess the message I want to pass along is that, yeah, do regulate the guns, do that, but don't use that as a means to solve the problem. That's not how you solve the problem. That's a Band-Aid. That's just, it needs to be in place, needs to be reasonable. That's cool. Do that. We have that in Canada, and most countries have. Guns are regulated because they are dangerous weapons. You can't leave them in the hands of kids. You can't leave them in the hands of people that have a history of violence or mental illness. So yeah, do that. It's too easy to just shoot someone, right? So do that stuff. Lock him up, whatever, like we do, and like a lot of people like to hunting up here, and it's great. They keep their guns in the locker. But there is a grassroots effort that needs to happen from the people up, as well as the government. Government has to stop the fear mechanisms, propaganda. That's on the top level, and that has to come as a request from the people too. Remember, the people are the ones that elect the government. And the second part is the people themselves have to stop acting like warriors defending their home. The English are not coming anymore. The Second Amendment is fine as it is. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I don't think having it there is a particular issue. It's really how you're using it as a way to solving an issue, like between neighbors. That's where the problem is. Like, if the English come, yeah, okay, like, arm yourself and try to do something, no problem. But they're not coming, okay? Right now, it's your neighbor is pissed at you because you built a fence too close to his property. Don't shoot him because you're angry. Okay, it's not an enemy. It's just a guy. Use the legal system. Use other means. That's I guess the way to think about it is don't follow the track that the U.S. has been on for the last 200 years, and more. If you think about it, find another way to resolve the problems than shooting somebody in the ass. Other ways to dealing with your own issues. Other ways. There's always a different ways. And think about it, guys. If you're an American, and you're trying to figure out a different way to deal with serious issues where you feel like your ass is on the wall, well, be immediately informed of how other people from other countries deal with such issues. We don't suffer as a people more than anybody else, and we use other means to defend ourselves and to live and to resolve conflicts. We don't shoot each other as much, right? So just think about that, guys. There's a peaceful way around everything, and peace, harmony, and love, which is giving, trying to give to others. That's the way for the future. That's the way where we get into a peaceful area where we can get comfort, when we can get safe. It's not with a gun on your lap ready to shoot. You won't feel safer with a gun in your hand. That's an illusion. You feel safer in your head, right? If you have a way to go around an obstacle or a challenge or a problem. It doesn't need to be a physical thing that you can shoot. So look around and find other ways to deal with things. And people around you are ready to give and to support you and to help you all the time. It's not only family either. It's your neighbors. It's everybody else. Talk to them. Talk to each other. Find other ways to deal with things. And yeah, do solicit and write and argue against your government to stop it. They need to stop what they're doing that creates the fear, and that puts a lot of you guys in that state of fear where they can react and shoot someone. That's also a big issue. So anyway, I'm going to stop here for this message. Hope you guys will have a wonderful year, and the statistic will decrease, and we'll have less people taking out the gun, more people using different ways to solve issues. And we're all in this together, the whole planet. There are no boundaries anymore, right? And so everybody at work for the peaceful revolution. Enjoy it. It's a good time. Ciao for now.